Welcome to Your Business, Your Life with Matt DiFrancesco, your personal financial quarterback. Whether you've had years of success in your business or are just starting out, DiFrancesco Virtual Family Office can help you create a vision for your business, life, and family and guide you toward the fulfillment of that goal. As they say, you can't choose your family, but you can choose your virtual family office. Now, on to the show.
Hello and welcome to Your Business, Your Life with Matt DiFrancesco. Good morning, Matt. How are you?
Hey, any better have to be twins, Eric.
That's right. It's that old commercial with the, double bit and gum?
That's right.
Whenever you say that, that's all I picture is just you chomping on gum and there's two of you. So
You're dating yourself. Yourself.
But you knew the reference. So what does that mean?
Well, I did too. So yeah, we're in the same boat there.
All right. I know that you've got a special guest on today, and that is Ron Delano. Why did you bring Ron on the show today?
Well, I'm really excited about this because Ron's a good friend, and he's the owner of Ron's Collision Center in Somerset, Pennsylvania, which is an auto body and collision repair shop. And it's a family business. Ron and his family, they've been in business for over 30 years. And Ron's also, he's such a cool guy. He's got such an entrepreneurial spirit, and how he can see opportunities out there and how to apply his natural business sense to those things, whether it's in new businesses, whether it's in with his church, any of those type of things. So I wanted to have Ron on because he's dealt and overcome many of the challenges building a business and learning how to incorporate his family into that business. So I'm so thankful that he's willing to share his experiences with us. So, hey, Ron, glad to have you on.
Yeah, awesome. Glad to be here.
That's awesome. That's great. So I thought to just start, maybe we could give the audience just a brief overview of how you actually got started in business.
Sure. It's kind of even amazing to me when I was a youngster and going to school. I was always going to garages of uncles and relatives that was in the family, and I've always was drawn to the automotive industry as a young man, very young man, and when I got to high school and we had to make some choices, so I chose the vocational path and applied for auto body school, believe it or not, and the classes, and we had to take a second choice, and I chose heating and plumbing because at that time when I went to school, there was a waiting list to get into some of the vocational schools. So anyhow, lo and behold, I did not get my first choice, and I was devastated. So anyhow, Mom and Dad was happy. They didn't want me to become a mechanic or an auto body guy. So anyhow, I pursued the heating and plumbing world for a little while I was in school and didn't like it. But make a long story short, I met a girl and her dad had a body shop, and guess what? I started working for him when I was about 16. It was an awesome experience. I knew nothing. I was sweeping dirt floors, honestly. They weren't even cemented. Right. And I had a great time doing it, and I just loved where I was at, and I growed there. At the age of 25, I think I ended up buying his house in kind of a backyard body shop, so to speak. That's where I started my career at.
That's awesome. It's such a neat story, and it's interesting how. And the one thing I did not know is that you actually had the heating, the plumbing and heating background, and that was actually, you didn't get the first choice of the body shop. So, but how God kind of leads us down these paths that surprise us many times too.
Yeah, that was certainly amazing to me as I look back at it. It's almost like he had a purpose designed for me, and Mom and Dad or anybody else was not going to deny that. So I was lucky to know what I wanted to do from very young, and I'm grateful for that because I see so many people struggling to find their purpose in life.
Oh, exactly. So who actually, so tell us a little bit about the business, like who works there, how many employees you have. Just kind of give us a little bit of background on your shop specifically.
Yeah, sure. Of course, it started out small. It was just me and myself, and if I wanted a large crowd, I had to put mirrors up so I could see and pretend like there was more people around me. But honestly, it grew throughout the years, and then in 2001, we built a new shop. We currently employ mid-20s. I'm not sure of the exact head count there, but we got about 23, 24 employees, somewhere in that neighborhood. And both of my boys have been in the business, and there was some coming and going of those of my children in the business, and that whole journey is kind of a journey in itself.
Right. I think it's typical of a lot of family businesses, and I think many times the kids kind of assume, hey, we're going to come into the business. But I think you and I both found out that in a lot of ways they weren't really equipped, and I think sometimes it's good when they kind of walk away and are able to get experience in other areas that then they can bring back to the business. I don't know if that's been your experience so far.
Oh yeah, I completely agree, and I'm not sure that there's any template for this. I think each and every family business is uniquely different, with the chemistry that makes up all the personalities and all the circumstances that goes along with each business. But the biggest struggle for me was not my journey, but it was their journey, and for me to be able to somehow learn to grow, to accept them in some way, accept them where they were at, and to remember that I didn't end up where I'm at 50 some years old, all in one jump. So it was a difficult journey for me as well as for them as well.
Right. Oh yeah. And like you and I have talked about this. A lot of times the kids, because we start the business either when we're single or maybe just as young parents. And so the kids kind of, they've kind of grown up in the business, but they've never really seen like the toil and struggle, like you having to sweep the floors when you were working for the guy you bought the business from. And so they have a bit of a distorted perception on what it actually takes to build a business. I mean, would you agree with maybe that was one of the big challenges with your kids?
Yeah, that's definitely a disadvantage of a second generation coming into it, with what little I know so far. As I look back, would I have done things much differently? Certainly would have. But I'm not sure that I'd been any more successful doing it some other way, because I think you just have to go through the jungle to get there, so to speak. Yeah, the kids, the second generation is going to come in with some sense of entitlement, some sense of a much easier path. I think when we talked before, I'd always say, I cut the brush out of the path, and then I put shell on the pathways, and then I come back through and I paved the pathways. So we as parents, we want to make it very, very easy for our children. We think that's the answer, and that's the route for success. And of course, with me being the first generation, I didn't know any of these things. So I learned all those things through the good old school of hard knocks. So and I'm still learning. We're still journeying through this transition from a first generation business to a second generation business.
Well, exactly. And I think that's a natural inclination. I feel the same way. It's that we've kind of gone through these struggles, and we don't want to see our kids face the pain. I was actually, there's a great book by Malcolm Gladwell called Outliers. And he talks about some of when especially like immigrants were coming over, and he uses specifically the Jewish immigrants. When they came over, they started these businesses, especially in the garment district, because that's what they did back in Europe, and toiled and struggled. What was interesting was that then the next generation, they didn't push them to go into business. They wanted them to become professionals because they didn't want to see them have to go through all the challenges that they had to go through. But in a lot of cases, I think I found this in my life. I think you've probably found this in your life, and find this in our kids' lives, is that they need to go through those struggles and challenges. That's where we grow, whether it's in our business life, whether it's in our personal and family lives, whether it's in our spiritual life. You and I have talked about this kind of on a much higher spiritual level, where we're called to carry our cross, but it's in our carrying of the cross that we can have that triumph.
I completely agree with that. And as we mature and gain wisdom, we start to look at the world through a bit of a different lens. And for our children and for the people that are coming after us, they have to go through that same journey too. So sometimes that's difficult for us to watch, and we really need to exercise careful thought and care, and accept people where they're at and allow them to journey through through those same trials and tribulations that we went through, and they're going to go through it differently than what we did, and that's what's hard. We want somebody to just copy what we've done and continue on with the success.
Yeah, exactly. And one thing I wanted to ask you, Ron, is so you kind of talked about the boys coming into the business and then having to find their way, and you also to find your way. Where did you have kind of this epiphany that I need to do some things differently?
Well, we were going through struggles. Honestly, the boys are growing and they're continuing to journey towards what I think will ultimately and hopefully be a successful career for them as well. But talked a little bit about the entitlement and the maturity level, and not going through the trials and tribulations that I did. And in all honesty, and I say this over and over to my boys, it's not about making money. It's not about doing the business things. It's about the people, because really without the people, we don't have a business. And I'm so grateful for the great employees that we have. They do an awesome job. And is it a perfect world? Absolutely not. But as an owner, I'm maturing to a level to where I can understand that each and every employee is on a journey, and trying to teach that to my kids, that so they can continue to care about people and give value to other people's families and the community that's around us.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's one of the things that impresses me the most about you is how you have a very successful business. And to the audience, I'm going to tell you, Ron's a very humble guy. He won't ever toot his own horn about this, but he has built a very successful business in an industry where the independent owners are getting bought up by these bigger shops. And I think a lot of that has to do with the culture that he's developed with his employees within the whole organization, and that he's teaching his kids how to create that culture within their own world within that business. And that's, I think, a really critical thing, especially in these days. It's not always just about how much money and production that we can push through, but how are we developing our people? Because if we develop our people, the results are going to come anyway. Would you agree with that, Ron?
Yeah, when you say culture, I mean that's a buzzword for me. I mean it's extremely important in the way I go through life, and especially in a world that's so divided right now. I think that business owners as a whole, and I don't know who we're reaching out to, but our businesses can be a place where it can be an uplifting place. If we have a good culture, people can go home happy and maybe uplift the family instead of going home sad and degrading the family with their anxiety and rough days. So not to say we have all perfect days here, but we certainly try to make the average be that we had more good days than bad, for sure.
Oh, that's exactly right. And I talk to a lot of business owners, especially their kids. And the one thing I try to relate to them, which I don't think they fully understand, is that the business to the owner, especially one that he's kind of built from the ground up, is like another child to them. It's something that they've birthed and that they're giving life to. And how, again, there's a responsibility to all of those employees that they have. And and that's what I like about this idea of culture that you always talk about, is that you're developing leaders within your own business that can then pass those leadership traits onto their family, onto their communities, to whatever organizations they're a part of. So that's why the name of the podcast is called Your Business, Your Life, because again, they all intertwine with one another. So, Ron, during COVID, I know you and I had talked and you had this idea. I want you to explain to the audience about how you kind of started this new business and how you were also to incorporate your son, Aaron, into that. Just if you can give maybe a little bit of the story to the audience about how the idea came, how you started formulating this, and then how you started to see how you could pull your son Aaron into this opportunity.
Sure. Yeah, it started very oddly, and I always try to be open-minded, and I'm always kind of saying that I've done more things by listening than I have by talking, for sure. So I'm kind of a quiet guy and just kind of linger in the backgrounds, and I'm always trying to learn. But I go to morning mass, and I talked to a lady who her daughter was the principal at St. Peter's School, and we were just talking about the struggles of COVID, honestly. And she was telling me the governor keeps changing all these things, and they don't know what to do, and just the level of stress and anxiety of trying to reopen a school, and I basically was just lending an ear, and I, at the end of the conversation, I said, if she needs any help, I'm going through the same things in my business. Let me know, and I'd be more than glad to be of any assistance, whatever that might be. And lo and behold, to make a long story short, she had told her daughter, and the principal called me and said, like, hey, you're not going to believe this. Tonight, we're having a school board meeting. Why don't you come? I think, not sure why, but why don't you come? So anyhow, I went, and I got there, and there was, teachers and parents and people from the medical field and some people from the law industry, attorneys and such, and they were all trying to figure this stuff out. And I kept on saying to myself, like, what am I doing here? Like, I don't really fit in this conversation. So I just kind of continued to sit there and listen, and I kind of heard what they were saying. And it's like, we don't want our kids to wear a mask. If we have to do that, I'm not sure, maybe we should homeschool our kids. I was hearing the importance of community. I was hearing the importance of social development in children, and the masks and some of these things were inhibiting that. And so anyhow, I decided to go for a walk down to one of the classrooms, and I just kind of looked around, and I come up with the idea that I could build basically a windshield for these small school desks that would help protect them, any aerosol, the human aerosol that would be spread around when they're sitting at their desks. So not sure what was right and what was wrong, but it was just what my gut was telling me. So there again, long story short, at the end of the night, I took 2 school desks home with me, and the next morning I took a product into them that we're calling them desk dividers. Some people are calling them sneeze guards, but whatever you'd like to call them, we come up with a product that would seem to work. And right away, my first thoughts when I left that night, I'm like, Ron, do you know how many school desks there are in the world? And, COVID is affecting the world right now. And I'm like, I think I'm onto something here. So anyhow, we started to produce them, and within 4 to 6 weeks, we probably sold 500 or 600 of those products. And we were, it's just now starting to calm down a little bit, but we were scrambling there before the school season, and to try to get everybody equipped that had interest in those things. So it was awesome. It took off very quickly. The other thing, getting back to your original question, is it gave an opportunity too for my one son who wasn't sure if he wanted to be in the collision business. So we're working together on this new project. I'm not sure where it's going. It's still really early yet, but we're having fun doing it. We see a need. We're in the middle of building some websites and stuff like that, and trying to get our product message out there. New company's called New Day, New Solutions, and we just think that in bad times, instead of just mumbling around and talking about how bad it is, how can we take something good or something bad and make something good out of it? So hopefully we're doing that, and we're excited to continue to be creative wherever we might be invited to go.
Yeah, well, and one thing I'd like you to highlight, because your desk shields, there's a number of companies that have these different desk shields out there, but you kind of saw a unique way of making these, not only just how they're designed, but also the material that you're using. Could you just highlight that a little bit?
In my earlier life, I messed around with race cars for over 20 years, and we used a product called Lexan. And they make windshields out of it for a lot of the race cars. NASCAR uses it, so it's a very highly durable piece of glass or plastic. So at any rate, with my experience going to my racing background, I knew that we could bend and manipulate, and some of the things that we could do with that product. So That's where my idea came from, because everybody was really hesitant about using plexiglass because when it falls, it breaks and shatters and has sharp edges, and that wouldn't be user-friendly around small children. So that's how I come up with the idea. And honestly, there again, I think sometimes things are predetermined for us, pre-designed, and we just need to say yes and take action and listen sometimes of what the message maybe is as to what we're to be doing and where we're to be going with our talents.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And I just think it's so cool that, again, how you were able to come up with this idea, but then also find the ancillary benefit of giving an opportunity for your son who didn't quite feel like that the collision business was his. And I think this is the idea that I try to translate to a lot of my clients, is that we don't just have to look at the core business. We can create other opportunities outside that best utilize the human capital within the family. I think too many times we put so much of an emphasis on the financial capital, and we forget the most important thing is really them as individuals, as people, and where their talents and interests truly are. So I just think that is just an awesome story. I love that story. I tell it to everybody I run into. We're here to help you anywhere we can with any connections I may have with any school boards or the private schools in our area to help get this, because I do think it's a viable opportunity to keep our kids in a classroom, but in a safe environment. So I want to give you kudos on that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, Matt. It's awesome to have great people inspire me, like yourself and some of the other people I network with in our community.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So we're running short on time here. So Ron, first off, can you tell people how they would get in touch with Ron's Collision Center?
Sure. You can reach us on the web, obviously, Ron's Collision Center and autosales.com. We're actually in the process of putting a new website up. Our old one's still there, but we have a new one on the way. Should be ready here in the next 3 or 4 weeks. And then if anybody's in need of any desk shields or anything like that, you can reach me through the same contact temporarily. Our new company is ndnsolutions.com. It's not up and running yet either, but you can go to the web and definitely get in touch with me through our collision center until we get some of these other things rolling.
That's great. That's great. That's awesome. So Eric, do you have anything you want to ask Ron here before we leave?
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
I wasn't going to get off that easy, right?
No, Ron, it's go time, baby. You ready? First of all, Matt, I want to say to you, this is why I love doing this podcast with you. You are incredibly supportive of small businesses. You always have been. We've always talked about that. And you've given a platform to Ron and his new company and his son and truly for all the workers that work with him and for him. So thank you. I mean, that's the first thing I wanted to say. But Ron, this podcast goes nationwide. So let me ask you just flat out, how would it work for a school in a different area to order your product? Design-wise, I mean, is it pretty standard? That's number one. And then number two, shipping-wise, what kind of deals can you swing here, Ron?
Yeah, well, we're all very, very new to this, and we're journeying through some of these things. I'll be quite honest, and we know that there's some pretty great opportunity out there for us, and our website that's coming up. We're not sure if we're going to go e-commerce or a standard website. Mm-hmm. There's all kinds of wholesalers out there, school wholesalers out there that are selling school supplies. So we're not sure whether to approach those folks and maybe do it that way or go more towards the retail side of it. So we're weighing those things out currently. I don't think COVID's going away anytime soon. The neat thing about our product, we're doing some neat things. We built some iPad holders on the side of these desk shields. We're putting some pencil holders in them. We're talking about cup holders because water fountains have gone away, and now they're using the dispensers to fill water bottles and that sort of thing. So we're saying, let's take a look at a school desk that's been around for hundreds of years, possibly, and probably has not changed very much. I know if I go to the elementary school that I went to, I think the same desk that I sat in is still there. So pencils rolling on the floor and no place to organize anything. I think it's a great opportunity to give protection to our young children, but also maybe do some things from an organizational standpoint that they might not have been able to do in the past.
And again, I love the fact that it may reduce, possibly eliminate the use for masks in certain scenarios within the classroom, which would be great. So that it's incredibly innovative. I love that. But now I have to ask the one true question that's been burning on my mind. And again, we joked at the beginning of the podcast that I kind of dated myself at the beginning, but I'm going to do that again. Ron, when my teachers found me not paying attention back in the day, they would usually chuck a piece of chalk or an eraser at me. Will that screen protect me from a piece of chalk or an eraser flying at my face there, Ron?
Yeah, I actually think that might even stop a small pellet in a pellet gun. So
I hope they don't have pellet guns. We don't want that for sure. I'm already scared enough of the chalk. So
yeah. So no, I think you may be safe from that. But if you got a quick teacher, they may be able to run around your backside and get you. So
okay, well, I'm sure you'll have a design for that soon to protect my backside as well. Ron, thank you so much for being here. What a great time this was, and I love the fact that you have been able to pivot and adapt. This isn't something where you're being opportunistic. You are absolutely fulfilling a need, and I appreciate that. And as a father and a grandfather, thank you. Because it's very, very difficult. My grandson is virtual learning, and he's in kindergarten. And boy, how tough is that to try to wrangle a kindergartner to be on a computer for however many hours a day. So I think you have a really good solution there, and I wish you the best of luck, and God bless.
Yeah, Eric, thanks for the inspiration for sure.
You bet. Matt, again, you brought on a fantastic guest. Thank you so much for bringing Ron on. And I know that people can also reach out to you and chat with you. Can you drop your contact information in this podcast as well?
Sure. You can always go to my website, DiFrancesco.com. If you want to chat, there's a little button up on the top right-hand side that says schedule an introductory call. Also, a lot of the principles and kind of my process that I follow, you can find in my white paper. It's free. Feel free to download that at any time.
All right. Thank you so much. And of course, the last thank you goes to you, the listening audience. Thank you for tuning in and listening to the Your Business, Your Life with Matt DiFrancesco. If you have not subscribed to the podcast yet, please click the subscribe now button below. This way, when Matt comes out with the new podcast, it'll show up directly on your listening device. This makes it much easier to share these podcasts with your friends and family. And I'm going to encourage you, if you know somebody that works within the school districts or they need some solutions for their situation, please share this podcast with them so they can get to know Ron and all the things that he's accomplished with his business. Again, thank you so much for listening today. For everyone at DiFrancesco Virtual Family Office, this is Eric Johnson reminding you to live your best day every day. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Your Business, Your Life podcast. Click the subscribe button below to be notified when new episodes become available. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of DiFrancesco Virtual Family Office. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investment, legal, or tax advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or another qualified professional with any questions you may have regarding your business or personal planning. DiFrancesco Financial Concierge, LLC, doing business as DiFrancesco Virtual Family Office, is a registered investment advisor. Registration with the United States Securities and Exchange Commission or any state securities authority does not imply a certain level of skill or training.